What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. With Overwatch Season 4 only a matter of weeks away, it's time today to take a look at the next new upcoming hero, one whom players have been hoping to join the roster for years at this point, and that of course is the new mecha tank hero, Dmon. With so much hype and anticipation surrounding this hero, and Blizzard themselves having already put out a number of different teasers and nods pointing toward this hero, today I wanted to do a full, thorough, in-depth breakdown of Dmon and everything we know about her as a character in the Overwatch universe and her upcoming addition to the hero roster. We'll be taking a look at her backstory, all the teasers we've gotten so far, her likely kit and abilities once she joins in Season 4, and even some leaks that may be pointing toward a bit more information. I will of course have this video broken into chapters with timestamps in the description if you want to jump around to different parts, but otherwise let's dive right on in, starting first and foremost with the story and history of Dmon. So, Dmon, whose real name is Yuna Lee, is one of the 5 members of Mecha Squad. Both her and D.Va hail from the same original esports team, hence the similarity of their gamer tags or call signs in the case of them being mech pilots. And in contrast to D.Va's lighthearted, flashy persona, Dmon is described as being far more serious and disciplined. Her mech, named Beast, is a large red machine with an energy sword and shield that seems to serve as the tank of the Mecha Squad team. Dmon, along with the other non-D.Va Mecha Squad members, was first revealed to us in the Shooting Star animated short, which released back in August of 2018, where she featured a pretty subtle background role as a non-star character of the animated short. Since then, she's periodically shown up here and there, usually in story content pertaining to D.Va, but never really having a real center or star spotlight on her, outside of simply being a fellow member of Mecha Squad. However, after having this status for nearly 8 years, that has all now started to change. The first clear teaser pointing toward Dmon being an upcoming playable hero dropped in late 2025. Back in November, the Busan Mecha Base map was updated to feature this new screen. The text on the screen, when translated, mentions the ongoing battle between Mecha Squad and the Kishin Omnics, and specifically mentions a new upcoming mission that'll involve one of the members of Mecha Squad delivering an EMP to the Kishin's underwater home base. It's not specified in this teaser which members of Mecha Squad will be involved in this mission, but Blizzard went ahead and gave us a bit more clarity on the situation only a few months later in February with the 2026 Spotlight event. Amidst all the announcements and hype of this event, many were very quick to notice the large, demon-shaped character silhouette that was in the lineup of heroes who'd be releasing over the course of 2026. The silhouette didn't match the previous images we had of her mech exactly, but it was very similar. Additionally, during the Spotlight presentation, we can actually see in the background of one of the shots what looks to be concept artwork of a red mech, which has the same color scheme as Beast, being featured on a display. Again, this mech's design is notably not identical to the previous versions of Beast we'd seen beforehand, but did share a strong visual similarity, not only in its color palette, but also with it featuring the energy sword and shield. And what's more, this bulky mech silhouette was slated on the roadmap to be releasing in Season 4, with that same roadmap also featuring artwork that just so happens to include D.Va. Now, for most people, this was the point where it became abundantly clear that Dmon was in fact the Season 4 hero, but for any of you who may have been still a little bit skeptical, Blizzard was fairly quick to correct any deviating theories with the launch of Season 3, where we once again got an update to the Mecha Base map of Busan, this time specifically to the mech hangar, where previously we'd seen the other 4 Mecha Squad members' mechs being housed. D.Va's historically had always been absent on account of her being a playable hero, and now with the launch of Season 3, Dmon's mech was removed as well. In place, we got a little screen talking about how it was being moved in order to undergo modifications, alongside an image of King's mech, another member of Mecha Squad, which is a little confusing actually, because King and Dmon are different members with very different mechs, so why was King's mech featured here when Dmon is very clearly the character being teased? Well, at this point, we don't really have an answer to this little inconsistency. I'm actually going to go ahead and say that this was more than likely just an error on Blizzard's part, where whoever was tasked with adding this asset as a teaser for Dmon as an upcoming hero probably just accidentally used the wrong asset for the mech design. I genuinely don't think it was intentional that Blizzard was showing this mech here when it's supposed to be Dmon's mech Beast, but who knows? Perhaps it was, and it'll all make sense once she's actually on the roster. However, the disappearance of Dmon's mech wasn't the only change made to the mecha base with the start of Season 3. We also saw the addition of this large EMP device, which appears to be the same device mentioned in that initial teaser from back in November. It's quite large and has a vaguely Orisa supercharger type shape to it, but certainly does seem to be a very prominent and important device, at least in terms of what we're seeing going on here with Mecha Squad and the new upcoming hero. Following the launch of Season 3, we then got our next, and as of the time of me making this video, most recent teaser for the new hero, with the mid-season patch for Season 3, where now some of the windows on the upper level of the mecha base have been opened to reveal a repair bay where modifications are being made to Beast. Specifically, the mech's arms have been detached, which may or may not be significant in terms of how they actually plan to redesign the mech going forward, but if we are to assume that the final version of Dmon is going to end up looking more like the silhouette that had been teased, along with the concept artwork subtly shown during the Spotlight event, then yes, it is likely going to undergo some significant design changes from its original design to be more akin to something like this, likely designed in such a way that it'll be able to transport the EMP, which is also still present on the map. Also, it's worth mentioning that in this same mid-season update, we actually saw the total removal of that original screen, which featured King's mech instead of Dmon's, so maybe that further supports the fact that it was an error on Blizzard's part, and rather than bother fixing it, they just removed it outright? This one is still a bit unclear. But while that may do it for all the teasers and initial story content we have building up to Dmon being a playable hero, there is still quite a bit more to take a look at with her, particularly her kit and abilities. But before we delve into that, I do want to talk briefly as well about where she's going to fit into the current Overwatch storyline, that being the Reign of Talon. The past two heroes, being Sierra and Xion, both very neatly tied into their respective seasons and the plot threads that happened during them. Sierra, of course, was tied in with the Deadlock Gang and their infiltration of the Grand Mesa facility, and Xion is one of the elders of the Hashimoto, who were a major story faction for Season 3. And while we haven't seen the full story of Season 4 play out just yet, we do already know that it is largely going to focus on Malga and the Junkers, with Malga specifically traveling to Australia to try and recruit them to work with Talon. Now, as it stands, Dmon and Mecha Squad aren't affiliated with either Talon or the Junkers, which makes it seem a little strange to have Dmon be the hero tied in to this specific season and this specific storyline. Again, if we go back to the 2026 roadmap, we do have the artwork of Season 4 showing both Junker Queen and Diva, which does seem to me at the very least to strongly indicate that there will be a component of both Mecha Squad and Dmon, as well as the Junkers in this season, but to what degree they actually end up connecting has yet to be seen. At the time being, it doesn't really make sense for Dmon to be inserted into that plotline in any way, but it's also not impossible for Blizzard to find a way to work her in. Seeing as the teasers point toward her using the EMP device to take out the Kishin Omnics once and for all, I am very curious to see if and how that ties into what's happening with Malga and the Junkers. Perhaps the mission goes awry and somehow they all end up getting intertwined with each other, but we'll really just have to wait and see. But now, getting on to what many people are likely to find the juiciest part of this video, and the discussion about Dmon as a new upcoming hero. What are her kit and abilities gonna look like? Well, we do have some leaks which talk a little bit about what she's likely to do as a hero, but I'm gonna save those more toward the end. And I will have a specific section for them, so if you don't want to see the leaks, you can just jump over it and ignore that part of the video. But before we get to those, I want to talk more so just about speculation speculation based on what we know about her as a character and as an upcoming hero without factoring in the leaks. And the first and most obvious thing, I think, is that she's going to be a tank hero. I don't think there's any question from anyone on this regard. Her silhouette shows her to be massive, and even if they reduce the overall size of her mech from what we've seen previously in the mecha base, she's still going to be one of, if not the physically largest heroes in the entire game. Significantly bigger than even D.Va, who herself is a tank hero. So suffice to say, no question there, Dmon is 100% gonna be a tank. But what exactly might she do? Well, in terms of actual abilities and mechanics, the first one that I think is going to come to mind for a lot of people is one which stems directly from D.Va, that being the eject mechanic. When D.Va dies in mech form, she doesn't really die, she just ejects and runs around as baby D.Va, only to 9 times out of 10 die for real shortly afterwards. And so, with Dmon being a fellow Mecha Squad pilot, is she going to have the same eject mechanic? Possibly, but personally, I don't think it's very likely. And there's multiple reasons for this. First and foremost, historically, the devs have talked quite a bit over the years about how much of a pain D.Va is as a hero because of this eject mechanic. From a developer coding perspective, it is a very finicky, very buggy mechanic that has broken countless times over the years and led to multiple instances of D.Va needing to be temporarily removed from the playable roster because of issues this specific mechanic introduced for her. I could easily see it being the case that Blizzard right from the get-go decides to omit the eject mechanic from Dmon's kit specifically because of this reason and the possible headache it could bring to have a second hero on the roster who succumbs to these same sorts of issues. It's by no means impossible for them to introduce a second hero like this, but the developers themselves do seem to have a strong incentive not to. Additionally, it's worth considering that the eject mechanic itself is very deeply ingrained into the actual design of D.Va's kit as a hero. Her entire ultimate is designed to play around the fact that she can eject from the mech itself and thus use the mech as its own explosive weapon. So unless Dmon also had an element in her kit which made use of her actually ejecting from the mech, other than it just being thematically similar to the other hero from Mecha Squad, I don't think there'd even really be a reason for them to include this as something she can do. Beyond just being a unique gimmick for D.Va as a hero, it doesn't really add much to her playstyle, and in a lot of ways is actually seen as a detrimental part of her kit, as it makes her very easy to stagger. So arguably, future Dmon players may not even end up wanting this to be a feature present in the hero. And while we won't know for sure until the hero releases whether or not she can eject like D.Va, I'm gonna wager that while it is absolutely possible for them to reintroduce this mechanic in the new hero, more than likely, I think they won't. We'll see, and I'm certainly curious to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments, but personally, my theory is that she's going to be more like Wrecking Ball, where, despite being a character in a mech, she's not going to be able to eject from it. Beyond this, though, another major element, which I think we are very likely to see present in her kit in one form or another, is the aforementioned EMP device. Not only is the EMP itself sort of the focal point for all the teasers building up to Dmon's addition as a hero, but her mech is actively being retrofitted specifically in order to be able to transport this to the Kishan underwater base. Now, while in the context of the story, it would make sense for her to no longer have the EMP after she deploys the EMP, I do think we're going to see the EMP itself incorporated somewhere into our kit and abilities. And the question then is simply, what exactly will it do? Now, I do think it is certainly worth noting that we actually already have a hero with an EMP ability in-game, that being Sombra's ultimate, and it is easily one of the most divisive ultimates we've ever seen. So I think it's safe to say that the EMP will not just hack nearby enemies the way Sombra's EMP does, because A, that would just be redundant with what Sombra's already able to do, and B, everybody already hates Sombra being able to do it, so why would they put it on a second hero too? But instead, it's likely going to do something else. Maybe it'll just end up dealing a lot of damage, maybe it would inflict some other kind of negative status effect, or maybe it'll even end up working as some sort of support or defensive type ability. An EMP wave that gives allies shield. shields. I don't know. Frankly, there are a lot of different things they could potentially do with a tool like this when it plays into her kit, but I do think the prominence of the EMP itself in the build-up teasers for her being added as a hero is a good indicator that it is, in some capacity, going to be present in her kit. The other major element, though, to talk about with her kit and abilities is the energy sword and shield, which has always been a part of Beast's design, and based on the teased image from Spotlight, does look to still be present in the upcoming hero version of Dmon. But of course, the question still remains, how exactly will these work? A sword and shield is by no means novel as an element for an Overwatch hero to possess as an ability. We've seen these exist in multiple forms at this point across different heroes, and so I am rather curious to see how it'll be incorporated with Dmon, as it is pretty clearly going to be something she ends up wielding. Is she going to be predominantly, or perhaps even exclusively, a melee tank hero? Similar to Reinhardt, with maybe only one or two abilities that gives her some kind of range? Considering that all Mecha Squad mechs have been shown to be capable of flight, it seems safe to say that she will have some degree of mobility as well, similar to D.Va, which could work well in conjunction with her if she is strictly melee bound. She could close the distance to an enemy with her boosters, then hit them with the sword, and protect herself with the shield if there's a bit more damage coming in. Again, we can't say with any certainty how this is going to work until we actually get more info on the hero, but I do think her overall playstyle is likely going to incorporate this in some sort of way. And speaking of, now let's move on to the leaks. Because yes, there have been some leaks for Dmon, just as there were past new heroes. And I will say, if you don't want to see the leaks, if you don't want to be spoiled with any of this stuff, then jump to the timestamp on screen. All right, I've given you your warning. You've had plenty of time. Let's get into the leaks. So the same leaker who previously leaked details about Sierra and Xion's kit also at that time revealed information about Dmon as well. I will note preemptively though that the information revealed about Xion specifically was only about 50% accurate, and I think the reason for that is more than likely that Xion as a hero being developed by Blizzard underwent changes after this information was initially revealed, such that the end result hero we got with Xion when she launched in Season 3 didn't end up being the same as what had been leaked. Some elements were the same, but others were quite different, and I think the same is likely going to end up applying to Dmon as well. So take everything I'm about to talk about here with a grain of salt, because she could end up being quite different in actuality. Alright, so there's two major things that have been leaked about Dmon as a hero. The first being that she is indeed a tank hero and features a new health type, similar to how armor and shields are their own unique health types, but whatever she ends up having is going to be something totally brand new. The leaker did not elaborate any further on what exactly this new health type is going to do, so we can only speculate. The other major detail about Dmon that was leaked, though, is that she possesses a playstyle similar to Angela from Marvel Rivals. Now, for context, for those of you who aren't versed in Rivals, Angela is a Vanguard, or their equivalent of a tank hero, who's a melee hero with permaflight and the ability to grab enemies. You can see from the gameplay here the basic gist of how she works. She also has a ground form where she runs around like a more conventional hero and is able to just hit people with melee without being airborne. And on top of this, she does also have a shield, which mitigates some damage. So all in all, this does line up pretty well with what I would expect Dmon to actually possibly play as. Now, it would be a bit strange to have the physically largest character in the entire game be one of only two heroes with permaflight, the other being a tiny cat with a jetpack, but who knows, maybe Dmon's flight won't actually be permanent, maybe it'll just be sort of long form the way Echo and Pharah work, but still have a sort of melee mechanic where she can grab and stab people and move them around. While I could certainly see people having issues with this in the way they've had issues with similar mechanics in Overwatch in the past, I do have to say that it sounds like it could actually be pretty fun. Now again, remember, this is all leaked information that may or may not end up being particularly accurate by the time she releases as a hero in game. So take it all with a grain of salt. Maybe this is what we get with Dmon. Maybe it ends up being something significantly different. Only time will tell, but I do think that at the very least, this is an interesting image of what Dmon could look like as a hero, and one which, frankly, if this does end up being what she is, I think could be a pretty neat hero to play. So with all that said and told, what's next when it comes to Dmon and her upcoming reveal and release? Well, at this point in time, we're pretty close to when we're likely going to see the proper official reveal for her. The next teasers or information we get is likely going to be the immediate build up to her reveal, and that's likely to happen within the first couple weeks of August. I would not be surprised if right around the start of August itself, we see a hero teaser drop leading directly into a story reveal animation and then a gameplay trailer. Before then, she releases with the new season on August 11th. And of course, I will be keeping you all up to date with new videos covering all the new information and teasers as they get revealed. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned because there's definitely going to be some exciting things coming. In the meantime, if you want to check out a video I did years ago, closer to when she was first revealed in that initial Shooting Star animated short, I actually made my own hero concept of how Dmon could work as a tank hero. Keep in mind, this is a much older video of mine, but I still think is worth a watch, especially if you're getting hyped for the new hero and want something to hold you over before you can actually get your hands on her. And on that note, thank you all so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts, hopes, and expectations for Dmon in the comments down below. Are you personally hyped for her being added as a new tank hero? What sort of kit and abilities are you expecting her to have? And how exactly do you think she's going to end up tying into the story plotline of Season 4? As always, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe, hit up that bell icon, follow me on X, and join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any future Overwatch news, streams, and other content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, we've got a new tank hero on the horizon, so have a great day.